morning.
Yay.
Okay. Welcome to the third annual Veterans Day Agent Orange balloon release. And I'd like to give you just a little background about the Agent Orange Victims and Widows Support Network that is the originator of today's event, and their Quilt of Tears. The quilts draw national attention to the plight of veterans affected by Agent Orange. A long list of herbicides, insecticides, and chemicals were used during the Vietnam War. These chemicals came in many forms, from dust and powders to tablets and pellets to liquids in containers as small as an aerosol can or as large as a 55-gallon drum. These receptacles used to store, transport, and disperse these many chemicals came in several different colors. Today, the term Agent Orange is used to identify all chemicals used during the Vietnam War. During the 1980s, the initial Agent Orange Quilt of Tears project was started by a woman named Jenny Lefevre to commemorate the death of her husband from what would later become a long list of illnesses caused by exposure to Agent Orange. Jenny, as one of the original Agent Orange widows, continued throughout her life to fight the battle pertaining to Agent Orange and its effects on Vietnam veterans and their families. Today, the Quilt of Tears is made up of 27 panels and travels around the country, much as the Moving Vietnam Wall and Museum visits communities throughout the United States. Each panel is composed of individual blocks, each block telling the story of one individual who has died from an illness directly caused by their exposure to Agent Orange. On this Veterans Day, please join me in a moment of silence as we come together with groups of people all across our country while we pause to remember, recognize, and honor all who have been affected by the use of Agent Orange. Good afternoon. The dawn of a new day means hope and joy to me, and today is a good day. I hope you enjoy our 23rd annual Veterans Day ceremony at Washburn. I've heard if you say things too many times, they don't mean as much, but I don't believe it's true when it comes to saying thank you. A deep, heartfelt thanks is offered to all veterans, those present, those past, and to their families for their dedication, service, and sacrifices so we can enjoy freedom. Thank you to Standing Bear Intertribal Brotherhood for preparing this site for us today, and to Bill and Judy Pfeiffer for coordinating the balloon release, to our Washburn veterans for posting the colors, the Capital City Barbershop Chorus for sharing their patriotism through their musical talents, to our guest speaker, Colonel Paul Idle. Thanks also to the Topeka West Junior ROTC cadets for the wreath placement, and Bravo Battery 1-161 Field Artillery for our 21-gun salute, and to Jay Stevenson and Shirley Jacobson for the beautiful taps that you will hear with echo at the end of this program. Also want to thank Rolling Thunder Military Vehicle Club for bringing their vehicles today. They're at the south end of the lot. And I don't know if the VFW from Perry, motorcycle veterans of Perry, for their presence today. A final thanks to all of you for coming to help us honor, remember, and collectively extend a grateful thank you to all veterans. Following this ceremony, you are all invited to a reception in the Memorial Student Union just directly behind you. And we will have refreshments in the lounge. The Combat Air Museum has a special exhibit, and also there is a special veterans exhibit just inside Mayview Library. So thank you again for being here. At this time, I'd like to invite Chaplain Bruce Clapham from the VA to come and give our invocation. Thank you.
I know that this day is to honor veterans, and the intent of this prayer is to focus upon where veterans' eyes are focused now, upon those who are serving us and protecting us right at this moment, those who are in harm's way. God of mercy, we beg you now to protect in a special way those who are defending us and the country we love. Bless them and take care of them. If they are tired, give them strength. If they are wounded and suffering, give them comfort. If they are lonely, touch them with your gentle hand and let them know that you are near them. And if it be your will that they should give up their lives for us, grant them a peaceful death and a home with you in heaven. Hasten the day, dear Lord, when along with them and their families, we may all enjoy the blessings of peace once more. Amen.
seated. The Capital City Chorus of Topeka, Kansas is privileged today to come out and honor the veterans who have served this nation. And for that purpose, we would like to sing for you the Armed Forces Medley. We will ask you or invite you to stand as your service hymn is sung. If you happen to be standing already, consider a salute. The order of the service hymns is Coast Guard, Marine Corps, Navy, Army, and Air Force.
From the rising of the sun till the battle's fought and won, we will fight for the right and defend our country. We're always ready for the call. We place a trust in thee. Through service, storm and howling gale, high shall our purpose be. Semper Paratus is our guide, our pledge, our motto too. We're always ready, do or die. High Coast Guard, we fight for you. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First we fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honored lead. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine. Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joys, we sail at break of day. Through our last night on shore, drink to the full. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home. First you fight for the right and you tell the nation pride as the army goes rolling along, rolls along, proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won as the army goes rolling along. Then it's high, high, hey, the army's on its way. Count off your cadence, proud and strong, for wherever we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along, along. Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, soon to be our thunder. Atta boys, give her the gun, give her the gun. Down we dive, spelling our flag from under. Off with one hell of a roll. We live in fame, we're down in flame. Hey, nothing will stop the U.S. Air Force. And those are the great armed forces of America. They serve America at home or overseas. They serve America.
Hello, everyone. And welcome. Welcome to this solemn occasion, but with having lifted our spirits now with the singing of each of the service's songs, it feels more festive. And perhaps it should be, because we're here to celebrate, and we're here to pay tribute to those of you that are veterans and to those that are currently serving. A few weeks ago, I had an opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. And as I was boarding the aircraft down in Dallas, they had a delay. And the delay was that there were probably 80 veterans from World War II that they had to board the plane before they let the rest of us aboard. And it was almost spiritual. Everyone that was in the terminal, everyone that was near that gate, all formed into a line and cheered as these veterans boarded the aircraft. Now, they were a pretty raucous group going up there as well. And when we arrived, they had all of us that were not a party to that to deplane. And then every single person at the plane stayed there in the gate area, along with all the other people in Washington, D.C. that were there waiting on airplanes. And again, all applauded and cheered as every last veteran came off the aircraft. It was really an emotional time. And it made me think about the sacrifice that not only they had made, but also that our current service members are making for us and for our benefit. And so today, the modest ceremony that we have here is nonetheless heartfelt, but also only small in token compared to what you have given before and what our colleagues are giving today. And one of those is with us, and it's my honor and privilege to introduce today Colonel Paul Idle. He's a Kansan. He was born in Brown County near White Cloud, Kansas. I must admit, I've never been to White Cloud, Kansas. He attended Highland Junior College and played 2 years on the football and basketball teams while he was there. He was drafted. His induction was deferred so he could finish school that year. But he then went through basic training at Fort Riley, and with the 10th Mountain Division was sent directly to the Far East, Japan and Korea. Now this would have been in 1952. Not a vacation trip to Japan and Korea. He was an infantryman and had 4 months of basic and infantry training. The Army sent him to a 30-day medical aidman school and then on to Korea as a combat medic. Colonel Idle joined the Army National Guard in Hiawatha when he was released from the Army. He returned to college and attended Washburn briefly and then on to Emporia State. Sorry, you made a mistake there. In 1957, he received his B.S. degree and was commissioned as a second lieutenant that summer. Paul was a teacher, he was a coach, he was a principal in the public schools for 10 years before being called back to the military and to the Army in February 1968. Another bad time. And this time it was for an indefinite tour. He was promoted to major in 1969 and served in the selective service system for over 8 years. After being released in May of 1976, he returned to the Kansas Guard. He was promoted to colonel in 1985 and then retired in 1990. From 92 to 99, Colonel Idle was the honorary colonel of the 130th Field Artillery Regiment. He now volunteers at the Museum for the Kansas National Guard at Forbes, and he serves on their board. And last Sunday, he was inducted into the Kansas National Guard Hall of Fame. We're delighted to have you here with us today. Thank you for joining us, and welcome, Colonel Idle.
Thank you, Dr. Farley. It's really an honor for me to have Dr. Farley introduce me. I've heard about him for years. I don't think I've ever met him. I'm wearing this cap because some of you recognize the badge on it. The badge is that of a gliderman. The man who rode the gliders of World War II. And I'm wearing it because of my brother-in-law, Charlie Drake, Highland, Kansas. He's gone now, but he was with the 101st Airborne and had numerous missions in the glider, a very dangerous way to get from here to there. It's easy to get there from here to there, but it's not easy to land there. But I'm very proud of him and what he did. It was doing one thing during a crucial period that was never done again. In my pocket, I do have some other things I think of on Veterans Day. The greatest, longest badge that's ever been around, the Combat Infantry Badge. I served with the infantry. If you look on my car, I have a Combat Infantry Badge on it. That's because my DD-214 states that I had a Combat Infantry Badge. Well, I was really a medic. I was an infantryman. But with that 30 days of medical school, I was an infantry medic. And I have the Combat Medical Badge, and I don't carry that for myself. But I had an African-American friend that was a medic and was killed and body never found. Posthumously, he received the Distinguished Service Cross. 40 years after that happened, Washington called me about Charlie Johnson. It kind of shocked me that late they would call about him. And I told him, yes, I knew him, and I served with him. Well, they said they're looking in that area of North Korea now. And they wanted more information. Here's a man who had the Distinguished Service Cross, and they had no information on him. What they got was off of the computer at the Korean Memorial. And who sent that in? I did. And what they had was a picture of him. And I said, where'd you get that? And they said, oh, I don't know where that came from. I turned it over, and on the back was my name. And I was the only name they had to call. He had a wife and a baby, but in the meantime, they grew up. And the wife probably remarried with a different name, and the baby married and had another name, as a little girl. And I told them to keep my name on the list because I will represent him. Today is Veterans Day, and all veterans have memories, not on just Veterans Day, but probably sometimes every day. They're not all bad. I think in my mind, I pushed out the bad things and kept the good things, and that's why I sort of got along in this world. And I stayed in the military, which was another important thing. But I never think much of the bad things. They were there, and I could talk about them. It didn't bother me. But this is 11/11/11, the 11th hour, the 11th day, the 11th month. And I think of next year, 2011, will it be 4 11s in a row? 11/11/11/11? Maybe it will be. I always felt that Memorial Day in May and Veterans Day were too much alike. On Memorial Day, my family honored all those who had gone before us with flowers. Veterans had a flag. But under Veterans Day, we honored the veterans. This started back in World War I, and under Eisenhower it was changed to Veterans Day. It was Armistice Day, and Eisenhower changed it to Veterans Day to honor all servicemen and women. What is a veteran? I think that's been a thing that they've We've all been misguided on that. Generally, that's a person who's served in the military for a certain period and honorably released or discharged. A veteran may be from active service, reserves, and the National Guard. If they never are activated in the Reserve and Guard, are they still veterans? Do you have to serve in a combat zone or in country to be a veteran? The veteran is a person who, there's about 3 or 4 out of 100 people in the United States, or close to 300 million, I think, is a veteran. Now he chose to be in the military service and a veteran. He served for a short time, a long time, or made it a career. He saw things that most of the population could never imagine. He sees people, places, and things, and at times these are ugly. He takes combat training, good or bad. He senses, smell, hearing, and the sight of war. You smell cordite or gunpowder, artillery shells, and you hear the rockets on the 4th of July. I'll be truthful. My wife will tell you that I haven't been able to take that all these years. Even the shells that leave nothing but the force that you feel in your face. Now I wear hearing aids. I'm not hearing aids, but some earplugs that help a lot. But I don't like the sound of loud things. The smell of country. Vietnam, I'm sure there's a smell there that we're not used to. We went back to Korea, my wife and I, in 92, I believe it was, on this revisit Korea thing. And we went over on the Korean airline MD-11, I believe it was, a big 4-engine jet. And as I walked through the door of that jet, I smell Korea. After all those years, they have kimchi and a lot of other spices that you just, it'll never go away. But sounds, you hear a lot of sounds, not just explosions, but of wounded. And sometimes you hear them if you want to hear them. Sometimes you just don't pay much attention to them. But most veterans that have been around combat. The veteran becomes a patriot. He feels the love of country. Stands when they play the national anthem. And he may become a better citizen. He gains another family. And friends for life. I'm sure that happens to most people. Whether you served in World War I, Korea, Vietnam, Somalia, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan, and even if you served in the Cold War, War on Terrorism, you're a veteran. I've had people who the church would recognize veterans, and they didn't want to be recognized because they didn't go to war. they'd be on a ship. Well, they are veterans. Every veteran served a purpose in the military. And you can't have a military if you don't have all those. You know, I mention this before, but no, I don't think I did, but once upon a time, some time ago, and it may change, but 8 out of 10 personnel in the military are support personnel that are not actually involved in combat or face the enemy. So the logistics and the support is very important. The United States has always been good on getting the things there that the combat troops need. So everyone in the military has a role. It's a huge, huge organization. The old saying when I was with selective service was, when not all can serve, who serves? In my lifetime, the male could join any branch of service they wanted if they were found qualified, physically, mentally, and morally. Today, you can add women to that list. During the draft that ended in '73, they would take the best qualified males that were in Class A, but they could not draft women, and even could not take all the males. So they used a lottery system to solve that problem. Today, our veterans are those men and women who choose to serve. They're part of the all-volunteer military. The all-volunteer force is carrying the burden of our country. Under the draft, the selective service system, the public would always blame the selective service system or the draft board if their son was inducted into the military and there was a war going on. Especially if the war was a drawn-out war and had numerous casualties, such as Vietnam. And today we're having that same problem. Public unrest regarding Iraq, Afghanistan, and the war on terrorism. In an all-volunteer force, with no draft, no selective service operating, who do you blame? You guessed it, the president. Well, that was the feeling that I had. Since this is the anniversary of the 60th anniversary of the Korean War starting in 1950, it's hard to believe that I was around in 1950. I didn't mention this, and it wasn't in the... I'm married. I'm 58 years old. 78 years old. 20 years different. 78 years old, married to my wife Chloe, but for 48. And I have 2 sons, Eric and Derek. Eric is 42 and works for the state of Kansas, DOT. Eric is 42 and he's a design engineer for Boeing on the refuelers, the tankers. And he's been on that for about 9 or 10 years now, and he's a very crucial part of the Boeing getting the contract for tankers for the U.S. Air Force. And I have 2 granddaughters, 14 and 12, who we really enjoy. But when I went to Highland College, it was 50 to 52, and I never heard of Korea. I never heard of Panmunjom, Seoul, Uijeonbu. There's all kinds of names that pop up. But as I worked at a restaurant as I went to college in Highland, and as I walked to the restaurant, I passed a hardware store, and there was a television in there. Now, television was a new thing, and I didn't get to see one anywhere but in the window of the store. And they were telling about the Korean War, that the North Koreans had invaded the South and had taken Seoul, the capital. Well, I was alert that there was such a thing. And within a little over 1 year later, I got my induction notice. And I sort of knew that's where I was going. I did land in Busan, Korea, the southern part. The entire country was in a shambles. Busan was a port city south, and the enemy never got that far. There was a Busan perimeter, and they never got that far south. And Busan was where all the refugees went. And the town was overloaded with people, no place to stay, nothing to eat. There looked like there was no hope. But there always is. And we went directly by train to close to the battle area. I say close, it's 30, 40 miles. Don't want to get too close. And on the way we saw the damage of war, the bridges in the river, villages destroyed, no people, railroads out except for the one we were on, and children by the dozens. Our train would stop and there would be children at every door, some carrying their brothers or sisters, and they were just black because they lived in caves, in metal little tents or cardboard or whatever they could find. And they knew the American soldiers would give them things to eat. Every soldier on that train felt bad for those kids and wondered what was going to happen to them. When we got to the end of the railhead, you were assigned your unit and you were taken to your unit. But I was there until the war ended, and I was with the rifle company of the 14th Golden Dragons. The 14th Infantry Golden Dragons are still fighting with the 10th Mountain Division out of Fort Drum, New York, and they're in every conflict going on, from Haiti to Somalia to Iraq, Afghanistan. The one statement I wanted to make, that the UN command, mainly the United States and all the other countries, won the Korean conflict. Did you know that? They won it. They didn't give it away, or they didn't. We didn't win it. Yes, we did. If you could go to South Korea today, you would understand why I say that, because South Korea is the most progressive country in the world. It has been for a long time. We stopped communism for the first time there in Korea. Our mission wasn't to go to the Yalu River or take over North Korea and occupy that country. Our mission was to run the communists out of a country that we protected after World War II. And we did. And North Korea, look at it today. I don't know any simple words to say it, but they're the dumbest country in the world. can't figure out what they're doing. You know, Korea is only the size of Kansas. And to have a big war like that in Kansas, can you imagine that? And North Korea would be a little more than half of Kansas, but what are they objecting about being part of the world? Anyway, I want to bring that up. I had one person tell me recently, we lost that war. Well, holy mackerel. He got my opinion very quick. Thank you for being here and for recognizing our veterans. Those of you who are here to recognize them. Thank them for their service to our beloved country. And thanks for the family support of our troops. I know it's difficult for the family, but we've had better family support now than ever, maybe World War II. But even the support beyond the family, corporations, companies, churches, other organizations, they're all behind the troops. Throughout the history of our nation, men and women who served to keep this country free. And they have served to keep other countries free from oppression, or regain their freedom that was taken away. World War II and Korea were good examples of that. In my Sunday school class, I asked them, what would you give to protect our freedom that we have in this wonderful country? What would you sacrifice for this freedom? I ask this because freedom is not free. We just don't have it. There's people out there that would take our freedom in a minute and give us something else. And they're not ashamed to say it. Right now, I think we're in a critical position where our way of life is in jeopardy. There are forces in this world today that would like to change the things we hold dear. And they do not hesitate to tell you that. God bless our veterans for their service and their sacrifices. All gave some, some gave all. Names here on the memorial. God bless our troops that are deployed in harm's way, fighting for peace in this world. God bless all of you and your families. And God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Idle. We appreciate you being here. I wore my pearls today. If you've ever heard the parable of the pearl of great price in the Bible, a man saw a pearl and he wanted it so much that he sold everything he had to purchase that pearl. And it just makes me think of freedom as our pearl of great price, and that veterans and their families have given so much, and some all, of what they have to purchase that for us. At this time, I'd like to share with you some names of veterans. Of Corey Nixon, Washburn student, newly back from Iraq. Cleveland T. Martin, machinist mate first class in the Navy, 1942 to 45. Brian Heston, U.S. Marine Corps, 2003, 2006. Jared Clark, Staff Sergeant, U.S. Army, currently serves with the 101st Airborne in Afghanistan. Lauren Patton, Staff Sergeant, Army Air Corps, World War II, England. Troy Patton, U.S. Air Force, Desert Storm, Saudi Arabia. Terry Wilkinson, served in Vietnam in the Air Force. Dave Boos, U.S. Marines, Vietnam. Bill Schultz, U.S. Marines, Vietnam. Norm Kester, U.S. Navy. George Bradley, Purple Heart. Terry Knowles, U.S. Marine Corps, Camp Pendleton, California and Vietnam, and other Far East sites, 1961 to 65. Wallace Ray Kidd, Sergeant First Class, U.S. Army, in the European Theater, 1941 to 46. Meredith Edward Kidd, Third Class Petty Officer, U.S. Navy Reserve, in the West Pacific Fleet in Vietnam, for Vietnam, 1969 to 75. Elliot Maurice Kidd, Lieutenant Commander, U.S. Navy, served in the West Pacific Fleet, Gulf Fleet. Jared Burney, Corporal, U.S. Marine Corps, 2005 to present, and served in Operation Iraqi Freedom 3. John Moore, Jr., Second Class Petty Officer, Navy, served in Vietnam, 1967 to 73. John Curtis Reeves, Lance Corporal, U.S. Marines, killed in action August 1969 in Vietnam. Thomas McCulka, World War II tail gunner, U.S. Army, missing in action for 6 months, now deceased. Herbert Swinder, Korean Army, Korean War, U.S. Army. Willard D. Crystal, paratrooper, World War II. Corporal Daniel Franklin Schrader, U.S. Marine Corps. Captain Donald Howard McConnell, U.S. Army Air Corps. Chief Joseph W. Farmer, United States Coast Guard. Walter Baker, U.S. Army, 101st Airborne in World War II. John P. Duffy, Senior Master Sergeant, United States Air Force, World War II and Korea, Germany also. Larry Bauer, U.S. Navy, 1966 to 1970. Philemon Arthur Dean Pickard, Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps in Korea. Stanford Walker, U.S. Navy. Scott Jackson, Staff Sergeant, U.S. Army, 1995 to present, currently serving in Iraq. Albert W. Prim, Sr., Army, World War I. Albert W. Prim, Jr., Navy, World War II. Michael Webb, Army, World War I. Mark A. Prim, Air Force, Vietnam conflict. George Wayne Herschel, U.S. Navy, Senior Radio Officer, World War II. George Stiles, Army Air Corps, World War II, Battle of Kansas. Louis Soldina, Petty Officer, U.S. Navy, World War II and Korea. Ronald Soldina, Major, U.S. Air Force, Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Curtis Van Dong, Sergeant, U.S. Army, Operation Iraqi Freedom. Randy Sanders, Sergeant, Army, Vietnam. Samuel Matthews, Army, World War I at Pearl Harbor, and he's still living. Quentin Russell, Air Force, Vietnam. Francis Kessler, U.S. Army, World War II. James Lyons, Army, Private First Class, Vietnam. And Albert Miner, Corporal, Marine Corps, World War II. I just want to say thank you for their service and for all of you for sharing these names. It's an honor to be able to name them today. At this time, we will have wreath placement by the Topeka West Junior ROTC cadets. We're proud to honor veterans in different branches of the service.
In 2006, I was working in the VA hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I I happened to be standing by the eligibility desk. And I seen a woman come in with a young man who, at first glance, you would wonder, does he shave yet? You know, she had him by the arm, and she was really directed toward that eligibility desk. So I was standing there listening, and she brought him up to the desk, and she said, "He's not the same." And I looked at him, and you've seen it enough, you know that look in the eyes where they've seen combat. And the question came to my mind. Well, the first thing that came to my mind was, he's still in Iraq. The second question, the question that came to my mind was, will he ever go home? So, I thought I'd give a blessing for coming home to our veterans. It is my hope that all of our veterans go home. May the door swing open with cheerful charm, and the old familiar mutt jump and bark. May everyone you love wait with welcome arms, and the light of friends chase away the dark. May you sing and dance and talk and play all night. May your grace and kindness all fear disarm. May you wait a day before your first good fight. May the God of homecomings welcome you home each day, and at the end of all our days, and forevermore. May the Lord bless our veterans and their families with peace and happiness.
Chilly. It got a little chilly there. Good.